world's leading manufacturer of industrial sewing machines is pleased to present a home serger line surpassed by none. Our commitment to quality and reliability in industrial serging is inherent in all of our home models.
In this video, we will feature the exciting pearl and garnet sergers with differential feed. These safe and easy-to-operate machines provide high-quality stitching, have a variety of accessory feet available, and feature the latest advances in home serging technology.
By combining basic instruction with technique, this video will unlock the door to sewing creativity through the user-friendly features of Juki home sergers. You'll love the fine apparel, home decor, and crafts you create with the high-quality pearl and garnet line machines.
Section 1. Let's get acquainted. Setting up your serger. Let's begin your journey to a new world of sewing by unpacking and assembling your serger. First, extend the retractable support rod and turn it until it clicks into place. Insert the thread guide into the top of the support rod with the arrow pointing toward the front of the machine. Then, snap in the rear spool holder. Now, plug the power cord into the machine. Please note that the pearl line sergers have a 3-position on and off switch. You may serge with or without the light on. Turn the power switch to the on position. If you have a pearl line serger, the stitch length and differential adjustment knobs are located above the hand wheel. If working with a garnet serger, you will locate the stitch length adjustment knob inside the left-hand door. The differential adjustment knob for the Garnet model MO644D is located on the exterior of the left-hand door.
To take the guesswork out of seam allowances, all Juki sergers have a convenient sewing width gauge located on the front ship guard cover. Instruction manuals, parts, and tools. Inside the box with your Juki serger, you will find an easy reference instruction manual, a parts manual, and a toolkit contained in a handy zipper case. The toolkit contains extra needles, a needle threader, a needle inserter, a brush, tweezers, and screwdrivers. An extra lower knife blade, blade oiler, spool caps, spool nets, and a machine dust cover are also included for your convenience. Be sure to keep these items available for your future use and reference. A lower looper threader is included with the garnet line sergers. Included with the pearl line sergers is a 2-thread converter, which can be purchased separately for the garnet line models. In addition, the MO655 includes a seam guide plate for chain stitching only.
Your Juki serger has anti-vibration cone adapters on the spool pins, which are designed to steady virtually all sizes of home sewing cone threads. Place a cone on the stand and see if it moves easily. If it does move easily, remove the thread cone and the anti-vibration cone. Turn the anti-vibration cone upside down and replace it on the spool pin. These cones adapt the spool pins to various sizes of cone threads. When using small diameter spools or cones, the anti-vibration cone may be completely removed. When using spool thread, remember to always place the notch down and use the spool caps for a more even feed of thread to the serger.
Section 2. Performance features. Serger doors. Let's begin with opening the serger doors. To open the front door, simply slide it to the right and down. Opening the front door exposes the looper area for threading. To open the left side door, simply push firmly on the door and swing it open to the left. This exposes the knife adjustment knob on all machines.
Pearl line models are equipped with a micro safety switch which cuts power to the motor when the doors are open. On the MO655, this door is opened to thread the chain looper.
Knife system. Let's take a closer look at the knife system of the Juki sergers. This cutting system is much like the system on our industrial sergers.
The knife adjustment knob moves the lower stationary knife. The upper knife automatically adjusts to the movement of the lower knife.
It is easy to see that the upper blade is mounted so that it bears down on the fabric, meeting the fixed lower knife. The upper knife is completely self-adjusting and will not be pushed away from the lower knife by heavier fabrics. Our knife system does not require a lock to assure a perfect cut. The upper knife is retractable for situations when you need to have the knife out of the way. Thread tensions. Our thread tension system requires little, if any, adjustment in standard seam serging. For a well-balanced stitch, all tensions should be set at 4. We serged all of these samples with no change in tensions. Your Juki is designed to be versatile and easy to use. Quick stitch changeovers are important. Changing the presser foot.
Let's take a look at the sewing area again. The standard foot, as well as all accessory feet, are easily snapped on and off for simple changeover. To remove the foot, simply raise the presser foot and press on the black lever located to the back of the foot. The foot will drop down. To reattach the foot, simply lower the presser foot bar to engage with the holder. What could be more simple?
Decreasing width for rolled edge. When we want to decrease the width, such as converting to a rolled edge, we simply retract or pull back the stitch tongue by bringing the white button on the plate towards the front of the machine. Notice that the stitch tongue has disappeared under the plate.
Differential feed. The differential feed is created by the action of the feed dogs. You will notice that there is a front set of feed dogs and a back set of feed dogs. We'll move the stitch length selector knob to change the stitch length while you look at the feed dogs. You can see that the front and rear feed dogs are adjusting with the stitch length. Now we'll adjust the differential knob. Notice that only the front feed dog is responding. This is the differential feed dog. The differential can be set to feed slower than the back feed dog takes up. This movement stretches the fabric. Or they can be set to feed faster than the back feed dogs take up. This gathers the fabric.
If you are working with a fabric that puckers, simply set your differential to stretch the fabric as you serge. This will eliminate the puckering. Likewise, if you have a fabric that stretches as you serge, which appears as a wavy seam, set the differential to gather as it surges. This will eliminate the waves and straighten the seam.
Section 3. Getting started.
Inserting and removing needles. To insert a needle, retract the knife and with the needle inserter tool provided, insert the needle with the flat side facing away from you. Always insert the right needle first. Make sure it is inserted as far as possible and tighten the needle set screws with the small screwdriver provided. Insert the left needle in the same manner. To remove a needle, turn the hand wheel until the needle is fully raised with the upper knife retracted. Remove the presser foot and use the small screwdriver to loosen the needle set screws. Remove the needle with the needle inserter tool.
Threading. Learning to thread the serger is the first technique to master. We suggest that you thread your serger over and over until you are very sure of how to thread it. The threading process becomes very easy once you have become familiar with it.
To make your threading easier, we've color-coded each thread path. We've also provided a quick reference map on the front door for your reference. Let's start threading the machine. Threading the upper looper. To thread your Juki, you should start with the upper looper, which is color-coded blue. With the front door open, place the spool on the right front spool holder pin. Bring the thread up to and through the support rod thread guide marked in blue. Slip the thread through the thread guide plate slot, wrap once, and pass through to the right position. Bring the thread to the next thread guide and secure the thread within the tension dial. Turn the hand wheel until the looper is in the highest position. Continue to thread the blue color-coded guides. Thread the last guide and then thread the upper looper eye. Then pull about 3 inches of thread out. Threading the lower looper. Next, We'll thread the lower looper, which is color-coded red. This is being demonstrated on the MO654DE, which is equipped with an easy access threading device. Place the spool on the back right spool holder pin. Bring the thread up to and through the support rod thread guides marked in red. Slip the thread through the thread guide plate slot, wrap once, and pass it to the right position. Bring the thread to the next red thread guide and then through the thread tension dial. Continue threading the red thread guides. Thread one more guide, raise the needles fully and press the white lever of the easy access threading device down. Thread the guide and then the slit on the device. Holding the thread loosely with your left hand, turn the hand wheel until the upper and lower loopers just cross. The threading device will automatically return to the normal position when you turn the hand wheel. Now thread the lower looper eye and place the thread under the presser foot. Threading the garnet line lower looper. If you are using a Juki garnet line serger, use the lower looper threading tool provided and follow these steps. Thread all red thread guides down to the lower looper area with the front and left doors open. Then, use your lower looper threader to pass the thread from the right, under the feed dog plate, and through to the left of the machine. Turn the hand wheel toward you until the lower looper is in the leftmost position, and insert the thread into the slit on the lower looper. Again using the looper threader, pass the thread loosely back to the right side once again, and remove the looper threader. Turn the hand wheel toward you until the lower looper is in a cross position with the upper looper. Now thread the looper eye and pull the thread up until it lies in the long groove on the lower looper. Right needle thread. Next, we will thread the right needle, which is color-coded green. Place the spool on the left back spool pin. Bring the thread up from the back of the thread support rod and through the guides marked in green. With the needles in the down position, slip the thread through the thread guide plate slot, wrap once, and pass it through to the right position. Secure the thread in the tension dial and thread the guide. Then place the thread in the notch on the take-up lever and through the remaining guides. Bring the thread through the needle from front to back and pull a few inches of thread to the rear of the presser foot. Left needle thread. To thread the left-hand needle, which is color-coded yellow, place the thread on the front left spool pin. Bring the thread up from the back of the thread support rod. Pull the thread down and slip it through the thread guide plate slot. Wrap once and pass through to the right position. Secure the thread in the tension dial. Thread the guide and lay the thread in the notch on the thread take-up lever. Thread the remainder of the guides and the needle. Bring the thread through the needle from front to back and pull a few inches of thread to the rear of the presser foot. The machine is now ready to sew a 4-thread safety stitch. But before we move on, we would like to take a moment to mention oiling your Juki serger. Notice that the threading map inside the door also includes the areas that you will need to oil periodically. You may clean your machine as needed. Lint will not harm the external parts in this area. Serging 4-thread stitches. Check your tensions. All tensions should be at 4 to begin. Some fine-tuning may be necessary, but generally the stitch will be balanced when tensions are set at 4. Give a tug at each thread just above the tension dials to be sure that they are securely threaded in the tension dials before starting. Begin by placing the fabric under the presser foot by lifting the toe of the foot just enough to get the fabric started. Serge to the end and leave a chain several inches long. The chain may be cut at the back of the presser foot with the cutter located there, or bring the chain around to the front and let the serger cut it automatically. This is a lovely 4-thread safety stitch.
Notice that the red and blue threads of the loopers meet or hitch at the edge of the fabric. That means that they are in balance. We can see on the back that the needle threads are just dots. Just perfect. When both needles are in, you will notice that the left needle is higher than the right needle. This is how the needle should be. There are stops at the top of the needle channels which make it easy to insert the needles correctly every time.
Standard foot, tape and elastic applicator. Your standard foot is equipped with an adjustable tape applicator. The guide is easily set from very narrow for light cords to 3/8 of an inch for tape or ribbons. Simply adjust to the width of your tape. Feed the tape over the toe, through the guide and under the presser foot. Place your fabric under the presser foot, lower the presser foot, and serge. The stabilizer tape is placed and serged into the seam automatically. A shoulder seam that is stabilized this way will not stretch out of shape. To apply narrow elastic, simply place the elastic in the guide as you did the tape. Place your fabric under the foot, serge a few inches to catch the fabric and elastic. The elastic will be placed and sewn in automatically. See? This is perfect for many elastic applications. 3-thread stitch variations.
Your Juki serger is capable of many serger stitch variations. By removing one or the other of the needles, we will be serging with a 3-thread stitch. This is what the 4-thread safety stitch looks like. A 4-thread safety lock stitch like this is formed by using 2 needles and 2 loopers. The width of your 3-thread stitch is determined mainly by which needle you choose to use. Here is a narrow 3-thread stitch using the right needle only. Notice that the stitch inside the seam line is made by your right needle, which is highlighted with green thread on this sample. Keep in mind that the right needle is your narrow seam needle.
Here is a wide 3-thread seam. Notice that the seam line on the 4-thread stitch is made with the left needle thread, highlighted in yellow. The left needle is your wide seam needle. Virtually all decorative stitches are accomplished in a 3-thread mode. Let's remove the right needle to perform a wide 3-thread seam.
That's how easy it is to set up and serge a wide 3-thread stitch. For a narrow 3-thread stitch, we'll remove the left-hand needle. Now we'll serge a narrow 3-thread stitch. There. Perfect again.
Decorative stitches. The only time we have to change our tensions is if we change to a decorative thread or want to create a specialty stitch like flat lock or rolled edge. The rolled edge. First, for a narrow rolled edge, we want to get the most narrow stitch possible. Therefore, we will use our right needle. Pull back the white button on the stitch plate to retract the width stitch tongue. This white button is the automatic rolled hem control.
To get the fabric to roll, we need to make a change in our tension that controls the lower looper thread. The tightness of the tensions will vary, so set the lower looper thread tension dial to 7 to test the stitch. Remember, the higher the number, the tighter the tension. Now we will shorten our stitch length to 1 with our stitch length adjustment knob. For the Garnet line MO644D, this knob is located inside the door on the left-hand side of the machine. We recommend that you use fabric scraps to test your stitch before proceeding with your project.
Perfect! Your Juki makes the most beautiful rolled edges, and it's that simple to perform. As you can see, using decorative threads can change the look and really add dimension to the stitches that you have already learned. Rayons are often smooth and really add to the finish of a project. Metallics add a little glitz and glitter. Woolly nylon gives strength, fullness, and softness. Remember, rolled edge is not just for hems and napkins.
Flat lock. Flat lock is a very popular decorative stitch, which is easy to accomplish with your Juki serger. We have the serger set up with the left needle inserted and threaded. The stitch tongue is forward to give a full width to the stitch. Starting with the tensions at 4, The first adjustment to make is to the lower looper thread tension. Tighten it to 8. We want the needle thread to be pulled out to the edge on the underside of the stitch. So we will loosen the left needle tension dial to 2. Now this may vary with your machine.
Let's look at the underside of the stitch. The underside of the 3-thread flat lock will have the yellow needle thread pulled to the cut edge of the stitch to form perfect V's down the stitch line. If the tension on the needle is too loose or isn't loose enough, it will not look like this. Experiment until you've got the needle thread at the proper tension. Now, open the seam up and pull it flat. Perfect flat lock is the result.
Section 4. Accessory Feet. To increase the versatility of the Juki Serger, we have 8 optional accessory feet available. Each one of our attachment feet comes with instructions for their basic use. The Applicator automatically sets elastic onto your fabric as you serge. You simply set the tension on the foot to the correct amount of stretch you desire for your specific application.
The Blind Hem Universal Guide Foot features a movable guide to create the perfect blind hem. In addition, beautiful heirloom work can be sewn easily with rolled edges and flat lock made narrow with the guide. The standard blind hem foot is available as well, with lots of stretch for knit skirts and sleeve hems. This foot can also be used for heirloom sewing.
The piping foot has a groove on the bottom that guides the piping for perfect inseam application every time. This foot can be used not only to apply piping, but also to create custom piping as well as filled cord and spaghetti straps. The cording foot is used to apply smooth cording anywhere within the seam line on a fabric. The guide on this foot is adjustable to anywhere within the seam line, for applying decorative cord in the seam line or on the edge. Add filler cord or fishing line inside a rolled edge for a more dramatic edge to a project. Serge wire into the rolled edge on any fabric strip to create decorative wire ribbon. You can even apply a rolled edge over elastic to create finished button loop fasteners or create beautiful custom couching threads as well.
The pearl foot is great for placing pearls, beads, sequins, or heavier cords at the edge of the garment. We now have a new curved pearl foot designed to aid you in serging curves by giving you more room to manipulate the fabric at the foot. We've added a pearl channel to make it easier for you to serge pearls on a curve or when joining pearls on a continuous edge. With the gathering and shirring foot, gathering fabric or multiple layers of fabric is easy. You can create beautiful ruffles to be applied later, or gather ruffles onto a garment in one operation.
The design of this foot allows us to gather a fabric onto another fabric placed above the separator, which shields it from the differential action. Or we can shirr several layers of fabric or lace into a flat piece of fabric at the same time. Juki Accessory Feet make serging fun and versatile. You'll soon be creating wonderful garments, decorating projects, and crafts effortlessly as you advance your knowledge of techniques.
Section 5, Advanced Techniques. In this section, we will demonstrate some variations or alternate uses for the accessory feet to create some very beautiful effects. Pin tuck. First, we will demonstrate a pin tuck created with the standard foot and rolled edge. Set up your machine for rolled edges by retracting the stitch tongue. Make sure only your right needle is in and threaded. Tighten your lower looper tension to 7 or 8 and adjust your stitch length to approximately 2.5. Take a piece of lightweight fabric, fold it, and place it under the standard foot. Serge along the fold, with the fold close to the knife, being careful not to let the knife cut it. Open the fabric and see the pin tuck you have just made. It's as easy as this. Now, for a variation, let's look at the blind hem foot with relation to pin tuck and flat lock.
Put your blind hem foot on the machine. Serge a pin tuck, making sure that you keep the fabric folded up against the guide. Open the fabric and inspect the pin tuck. Do you notice that by using the blind hem foot guide, that this pin tuck is even more narrow and finer than the one you made without the guide?
Heirloom flat lock. Tiny flat lock is a beautiful way to join a fabric and lace, either for insertion or for an edging. First, loosen the right needle tension to number 2, leaving all other settings the same as in rolled edge. Serge this flat lock down another folded piece of fabric. Notice the different look to the stitch. Inspect the underside and check to make sure you see the V's. Open it out, and you should have a tiny flat lock. This technique is great for joining lace to an heirloom design. Now, put a piece of folded fabric on the fabric bed and place a strip of lace on top. Place both the fabric and lace under the foot with the edges against the guide and serge. Open the fabric out and look at the delicate joining stitch. Just lovely. Now, let's look at the ladder showing on the underside. This can be just as effective a look for heirloom serging. You make the choice on the side you prefer.
Creating your own piping. Not only can you apply purchased piping to your seams with the piping foot, but you can also create your own piping. To make piping, use 1.5-inch strips of fabric which have been cut on the bias. We recommend that you use lightweight piping cord which is sold in the upholstery department of your fabric store. Remove the standard foot from the serger and replace it with the piping foot. When making piping, use only your right needle to serge the piping. When you apply the piping, use your left needle.
To make custom piping, fold the bias strip over the cording with the right side out. Place the cord under the foot and in the piping groove. The foot will guide the cord and leave you free to guide the fabric strip correctly. Spaghetti straps are created in a similar way, except when you wrap your fabric around the cord, you put the right side in. You may leave it filled or remove the cording to make unfilled straps.
Piping and gathering at once. Let's serge piping into a seam using a piece of fabric on the bottom that is approximately twice the length of the fabric on the top. Turn your differential knob to number 2. Serge the two fabrics together, guiding them along as you sew.
When you remove them, you will see that the bottom layer has been gathered by the differential into the top layer, which has remained flat. The piping has acted as a separator because it is so much heavier than the bottom weight. The differential cannot affect the piping or anything above it. This is a great way to pipe and gather a skirt onto a bodice in one operation. These inserts were made in the same way, but we turned the fabric around and piped it again. Beautiful and so easy with your Juki.
Section 6. 2-thread applications. All Juki sergers in the pearl and garnet lines convert easily to 2-thread serging. The 2-thread feature creates a lightweight overcast. This stitch is versatile and unique when working with rolled edges, decorative flat lock, heirloom sewing, elastic application for maximum recovery, and flat lock lace applications. The 2-thread converter allows you to sew with the lower looper thread and one needle. Setup for 2-thread serging is easy. First, cut and remove the upper looper thread. Position the 2-thread converter on the upper looper. Position the end of the wire into the eye of the upper looper. The converter on the upper looper converts it to a spreader which catches the lower looper thread below the plate and delivers it to the needle above the plate. This forms this stitch. Notice the soft and delicate overcast stitch.
2-thread rolled edge. To serge a narrow rolled edge, you will use the right needle only. Retract the stitch finger to give the fabric room to roll. Now we can start to serge a narrow rolled edge. In most cases, there will be no tension adjustment necessary when using standard serger threads. Notice that the stitching appears identical on both sides.
2-thread overcast stitch. The 2-thread overcast is designed to lightly but securely finish the edge of the fabric. With thread tension at 2, set the stitch length to 3 or 4. Here we demonstrate the overcast stitch on 2 layers of fabric. See how softly this finishes an edge.
2-thread flat lock. There is little difference between the overcast stitch settings and the flat lock stitch settings. With needle tension at 3, we'll serge 2 layers of fabric using the 2-thread flat lock. See how the looper thread appears as a standard stitch, and that the needle thread appears as a ladder stitch on the back of the sample. With the overcast stitch, as well as the flat lock, you can use your right needle for a narrow stitch or your left needle for a wide stitch.
2-needle super stretch stitch. The super stretch stitch is perfect for sewing activewear and swimsuit fabric. Here we will use both needles. First, loosen your tension dial on the lower looper to 3. Your stitch length should be set at 4. We are using woolly nylon in the lower looper because of its stretch and strength. Just look at the stretch that is possible with this stitch.
Section 7. 5-thread serging. The Juki MO655 5-thread serger performs all of the stitches seen in this video and adds the chain stitch capability. The 5-thread stitch offers more flexibility and a professional look to any woven garment. You may use the left or right overcast needle for the 5-thread stitch. The left needle will give a wide overcast stitch, and the right needle a narrow overcast stitch. For a wide overcast stitch, follow the brown color-coded guides and set the thread tension dial to 6 or 7. For a narrow overcast stitch, follow the green color-coded guides and set the thread tension between 3 and 5. Threading the chain stitch.
To thread the chain looper, follow the lavender color coding up to the first guide on the thread stand, and then down to the second guide located on the back of the machine. Then over to the thread take-up located inside the left door. Continue threading through all lavender guides throughout the thread take-up mechanism by placing the thread horizontally through the guides. Thread one more guide and then onto the chain looper. Pinch the chain looper threader together and pull the looper down for total visibility.
Place the thread through the chain looper guide and into the eye of the looper. Leave a 3-inch tail on the thread and return the chain looper back to its normal position. Now, thread the chain needle thread. Place the spool on the front left spool pin and through the lavender color-coded threading guides. Follow the chain needle guides through the left needle guides until you get to the take-up. Be sure to put the thread through the top of the take-up, then down to the guide below, then through the eye of the needle.
2-thread chain stitch. The 2-thread chain stitch works very nicely on woven fabrics as well as for decorative sewing. Chain stitch sewing is the only sewing we do on the serger that is done on a flatbed. This makes it possible to sew within the body of the garment as well as at the seam allowance. To change over to a chain stitch only mode, first disengage the upper looper by turning the hand wheel to bring the looper to its lowest position. Then move the lock lever out of the base of the upper looper like this. Remove the chip guard and replace it with the auxiliary flat bed.
For a single chain stitch, use the chain stitch needle only. Raise the upper knife and lock into place. Now you are ready to chain stitch. Place your fabric under the foot and begin sewing. This is a great stitch for where you want stretch or durability in the seam. Also, try creating a decorative chain stitch by using decorative thread in the chain looper and placing the right side of the fabric face down when you sew.
Your Juki will open new worlds of interesting and easy-to-learn techniques to help you master professional serging results.
This is just a sampling of the wonderful fashions and creative home decorating projects that you can look forward to accomplishing.
Enjoy your new Serger.
And thank you for making Juki your choice.